I am Shadon Larkey of Awards Daily here with John, Clarence, Stewart, who plays Simon on Zoey's Extraordinary Playlist. I'm so excited to finally be having this conversation. Thank you so much for your time. Um,
Shadon, thank you for having me. I'm excited to meet you as well.
as I was saying, I didn't get a chance to talk to you for season one, so I want to kind of start by taking your temperature on this entire sort of Zoey's journey and how it's been for you and how you're feeling now.
I mean, Shadon, this entire experience has been a dream come true. Like, I never knew that if you would have asked me 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 10 years ago, that if I'd be in a musical television show, I would have laughed in your face and said, "There's absolutely no way, not me." But uh, even the way that I got into Zoe is just very miraculous in a lot of ways. I mean, Jane Levy, we did What If together, and we were all hanging out, about to go to Oil Can Harry's or something like that way back in the day. And she mentioned that they were looking for a role, and a castmate heard in passing that I sang, and he brought that up. And she was like, "You sing?" I was like, "Yeah." She texted something in her phone. The next day, I got a message from her and said she put my name in the hat for something. And then my agent reached out to me at the time, and they asked me, they said, "John, do you sing?" I said, "Yeah." They're like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then I received the script, and I felt um, called to the script, to the story. Simon specifically, because I lost my dad 14 years ago now, and just this idea of being having the opportunity to be a Black man moving through grief and love, it was just a dream come true for me. I haven't found that yet in my career. And so then I realized that after talking to Austin before I did the test, that he was the genesis for this story. And I felt all the more privileged to even be auditioning for it. Then to be working with Mandy and Jane and Skylar and Alex and, Mary, Peter Gallagher. I mean, the litany of the list goes on. But every step of the way, I've had to rise to the occasion. I guess that's the best way to put it. I didn't know that I would be called upon to dance in the way that I do in the show. I don't have any dance training, um, but I am dancing. I'm dancing a lot in the show. I'm emoting and dancing and singing in ways that I haven't had the opportunity to do before in my life, and I'm getting the opportunity to act alongside and across from people that I respect greatly, and to tell stories that I feel matter in the grand scheme of the world, which as an artist and an actor, I don't always get those opportunities. It's very rare that work comes along that aligns with my personal mission and, you know, kind of makes me believe in the power of storytelling all like every time I go into work. So yeah, that's kind of, if we're doing like the big statement for season one and season two, that's been the experience thus far. Yeah.
Yeah, and your arc in season two has grown a lot, and there's a lot of things that I want to touch on. I want to start with sort of the racism in the workplace storyline. You've said before how important has been to you, and you've also spoken about how involved you were with the crafting of that storyline. So, to the degree that you're comfortable with, I'd love if you sort of took me into those rooms and into those conversations and how what we saw on screen ultimately came about.
Shadon, thank you so much for asking the question as specifically as you have. I appreciate it. I heard about the systemic racism episode 3 to 4 weeks after George Floyd was killed. And they were apparently in the writer's room, and they were blue skying the season. And they had this impetus to tackle this with the form of our show. Something that I love about our show is that there's a courageousness in our showrunner and our writer's room across the board. But I received that news from Austin, and I was tepid. I was very, very worried. I thought, you know, I just don't want to get it wrong. I don't want to hurt my community more. Um, and I feel a great deal of responsibility to the Black community, and honestly, just to any communities of color, you know what I'm saying, that are in white spaces, because we're all impacted by this in various ways. I just wanted to make sure that um, that I would have a say in the way things went. And Austin told me, yes, this is the plan. I want you to be involved. I want to talk to you. I want to pick your brain. I want to bring things to you. And um, so we talked about at that point what they were thinking about. And he also told me that he would set up a meeting with myself and Zora Gaga, who pinned the episode. And when I moved up to Vancouver and started my quarantine before shooting the season, I had a series of Zoom meetings with Zora where we talked specifically about Simon's arc and storyline and what he was attempting to do, and how my life intersects with Simon, and what resonates as true to me, what my worries are. And we ended up having this very frank, just black man conversation about what it's like to be in predominantly white spaces as Black men. And a lot of that conversation, a lot of that material made itself into the episode, from both of our sides. I remember having a conversation with him and talking to him specifically about feeling like I have to amputate parts of myself to be in spaces, and then reading the script and seeing that in the script and feeling so seen and so seen, so heard, uh, and so honored that that would be woven into the script, that I'd have the opportunity to say that in this way. And then not only that, but Mandy, I have to give props where props are due. Mandy brought in Luther Brown, and we had, so there was the process from getting different versions and drafts of the script and sending notes to Austin, to Zora, and talking to them about um, different iterations of the script and what bumped me and what didn't bump me. I wanted to make sure, I think we all wanted to make sure, but since I'm talking right now, I'll talk about myself. um, I wanted to make sure that all of that, there were no white saviors in the script. I wanted to make sure that all of the characters, that there were no hollow versions of Black or brown people, that like everybody had a why, it was rooted, everyone was very fleshed out and very human. And Zora had conversations with Kapil, he had conversations with Alex as well, to that end, to make sure that we had embodied people in space. And also, I remember as time went along, we had um, there were cast members that they were intending on being in the season that were not in the season anymore, and they had to make some changes. And one of the things that I noticed in the script was that there were in the iteration of the script that I had, there were no conversations about race happening between two white people without any Black or brown people present in that script. And I thought it was important. And I had a conversation with Zora about it. We had a conversation about uh, what it's like, what allyship is, and how important it is for white people to stand up in spaces where there are no Black or brown people present, and to speak on behalf of and be an ally in that space. And then there's then in another draft, the conversation that I think is very, very powerful in the episode between Zoe and Danny Michael Davis, when she checks him, and based on everything that she's learned throughout the episode, she applies it in real time, which I think is, it's kind of a crux point in the episode. It doesn't work if she's not learning and growing and showing that she's doing that. And then from that point, that's all technical and script stuff, whatever. Even on the day we were judging and finding, but then when it came to the choreography, a lot of, I mean, from episode 205 to 206, the number "Please Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood" to throughout 206 to Tightrope, a lot of the numbers. Well, I'll speak for "Please Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood" first. That process started with a very frank conversation in the dance room with myself and Mandy Moore and Jillian Myers and Jeff Mortensen. We just stood around in the space and had a conversation about what we were trying to do. And it was very vulnerable. And I was very honest with them about my experience in space as a Black man, my experience in space, not in an ethereal sense, but in the set space that we're working in as a Black man. And walking into that space, knowing that we are going to be telling this story, which is charged. And we had a very vulnerable conversation. And then after that, um, did a series of improvisations to music. And the idea was Mandy and myself, we had this idea to put two chairs on either side of the room. And I sat in one chair. And the whole point was to make my way to the other side of the room and move from a space of being confined to free. And that was the journey. So we played a song. The song that I played first was Blackbird. It's an instrumental, more classical piece that I've been listening to a lot. So I improvised to that. And then I improvised to High Power by Kendrick Lamar. And then I improvised to Please Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood, but a live version that Nina Simone sang. And that was the first rehearsal. And then when I came back, Jilly and Jeff and Mandy had taken all of that and everything else they'd been thinking about. And they started giving me the choreography for the song. We started making it. So I was very involved in that process and the process of even Black Men in a White World. And I'm very grateful that they gave me the um, opportunity to speak up in this space, to contribute. Um, and I'm very proud of the work that we all did. I mean, there's a scene in the episode specifically between myself and Zoey, um, where Simon confronts Zoey about her seeing him as only Simon and not as a Black man. And in that scene, I remember being on set on the day with Anya and Zora and Jane, and Zora coming to me before we shot the scene and saying, do we have to crack it? Like there's something that's missing in here. And we had this very beautiful conversation before we went into shoot, between myself and Anya and Zora and Jane about what we needed to do to tune it to make sure that um, we earned the moments to come in the scene. And that's the craft of storytelling, you know. So all of it was just, I mean, that's, I guess, what it boils down to. It's just the craft and the craft of collaborating and storytelling. And I haven't felt that. I've never felt that involved in any creative process that I've ever been in as an actor, and I've never felt as heard and valued as an actor than in that space. That's a
I'm
lot. You said a whole lot.
Oh, it's okay. I love it. I'm curious because you don't have a dance background, and a lot of the choreography in Zoey is centered on this is another way that we can express this emotion. So, what has that unlocked in you? How has that changed the way that you approach then, you know, being an actor and approaching your scenes? I mean, what has that unlocked in you as a performer?
Shannon, it's unlocked a whole different world. Like I find myself watching videos of like Butoh videos, these very stylized dances that are strictly emotion and involve a lot of spontaneity and improvisation inside of a structure and form. I find myself watching videos of um, Barishnikov older in his career when his body has changed, but he's still emoting and communicating through dance in just these magical ways. It's opened my eyes to my to dance when it comes as it pertains to John Clarence Stewart as an artist. Now I've had a respect for dance for years. I watched So You Think You Can Dance, which is why I was starstruck when I met Mandy. Um, I've watched So You Think You Can Dance since the first season. I've watched So You Think You Can Dance, and you know, I cried and felt seen and moved many times watching people tell stories with their bodies. I just never thought that would be me, and now I see my body as just it's such an extension of my artistry. It's such an integral part of who I am as an actor. Like finding the tempo of a character, finding the physical language of a character, um, finding even, you know, the principle with choreography, in my opinion, being that you find that you receive the choreography, and then you it's almost like Iron Man's suit, right? It's this thing, you step into it and then it suits to your body specifically, right? And that's the choreography, in my opinion. Like, you receive the numbers and the steps and stuff like that, but the people that are genius, they have a way of making it seem like it's coming out of them, and that's the goal always. So it's unlocked a whole new world for me. I very much want to dance in the future. I want to dance. Uh, I mean, if I'm being frank, you know, I didn't really have aspirations for doing dance stuff on Broadway or anything like that. That was never part of my goal. Um, but my goals have changed. You know, it's something that I really want to do. And there's also a challenge to the different styles of dance. Like, and I think that when it comes to our show and what I've had the opportunity to do, only in retrospect have I seen, wow, I've been able to do a lot of different kinds of dance in this show. Like, there's crumpy styles, there's more contemporary styles of movement, there's more classical kind of styles, there's more like flowy hip hop styles, there's more jazz styles here and there. And I mean, all of that comes, that's the genius of team dance. Mandy and Jilly and Jeff. And also, I am really grateful for, you know, just the opportunity to explore all of that in my body. You know, it's changed me for the better.
It's interesting. There's a scene after Simon has his, his moment at work when he talks to Mo at the restaurant, and Mo, he says there's a lot to be done, and Mo says, allow yourself to have this moment of joy and to take this win for what it is. And it's interesting because when we meet Simon, he's in that state of grief. I mean, I believe the very first time we see you, you're singing Mad World. And so I'm curious from your perspective to have that cathartic moment where you're allowing Simon to feel that joy. I mean, what was that like to play and to get to express?
It it was, I mean, oddly enough, like, it was emotional for me, you know, to have the opportunity to, because inside of inside of everything that was also is happening in the world, to have inside of my workplace a reason to just let loose and be unapologetically joyful in spite of everything else, it was healing. Um, and I also think that, uh, just like, you know, Simon, a black man experiencing grief and the vulnerability and the pain and all of that, just like I think that is incredibly impactful, incredibly resonant. And we don't see enough of that, that inner world of black men. Just like that exists, I think that there is even more of a dearth of um, adult black male bodies experiencing joy, just exuberant, to the wall joy. And it was healing. It was, I mean, even in the, and it's something that I had to take to heart. I remember Alex saying that in the scene, and realizing that it's almost like, you know, it's almost like the show ripped the page from my own life. You know, I have a difficult time experiencing joy myself, allowing myself to um, really feel from head to toe good things. Um, and uh, and because I'm always thinking about the next thing. Like, there's always another thing to do. I don't want to get complacent. I don't want people to think that that I'm getting lazy, or that I think I've arrived or anything like that. But it was a lesson to me that I'm still unpacking. You know, where in my life am I not allowing myself to feel all the joy that is in the moment? Yeah, is I love that question. Thank you for asking it.
And I want to ask you about a couple of those joyous moments because you get to sing What Does the Fox Say, which is this wild performance, so much fun. You have Juice by Lizzo, and then you have Simon as a romantic lead this season in what I think is one of the great romantic gestures of building Zoey a stool. As a very as a very short person myself, I appreciated that a lot. I thought that was super sweet. So talk me through those moments. I mean,
Okay, so let's start with the juice because that was first. When it came, the story behind finding juice, like the juice could have been, it could have been like four other songs. Like we were trying to find, and Austin was like trying to find the right song for a while. And in the writers' room, they stumbled, not stumbled, they found juice. And when they did, and I listened to the lyrics, I was elated. I was like, oh, one, like, I get to sing a song from an iconic Black woman. Like that's just point blank. Absolutely, I feel honored. Two, um, it gave me once again a reason, an excuse to just let loose and be happy. Like there was no subtextual layer of he's happy, but there's another thing brooding underneath. There's none of that. It's just pure unadulterated joy. And then when we did the dance rehearsals, it was like, I mean, it was a party. For me, it felt like a party. Whenever that song started, it was, I felt like there's this YouTube video of Michael Jackson and back in the day, and he's standing on the stage and he's doing like very small things. Like I think he puts his hand out and the crowd goes wild. And then he starts to take off his glove and the crowd is like, wow. Then he finally takes off his glove and they're like, oh my God. That's how I felt. I felt like I was on a stage in front of thousands of people, which was wonderful. And then when we go to, then what does the Fox say? Um, if you would have told me that was going to be me, I remember in the dance studio, I looked at all of the acronyms for the dances that were coming, and I saw the acronym for what does the Fox say, and I was like, I don't know what that is. That looks weird. I'm sorry for whoever has to do that one. Good luck. And turns out that was me. And I ended up having a conversation with Austin about it before because I was like, why this? Because I didn't read the script yet. He was just like, you know, John, like you because of this idea and this switch, and also like to get Simon to just be really joyful and out and a side of him that we never get to see. We never get to see this side of him. And I just think it would be really great. And then when I locked into just the givens of the script that I'm the embodiment of Rocco, this kid, um, I was like, oh, so I get to drop into my inner child. Oh, I get to drop into that space with abandon and wildness and no judgment and anything is possible. Great, let's do that. And then it was, I mean, every dance rehearsal was like being in a playpen or like playing with Legos for the first time and being like, anything I could do anything? I could lay on the ground like a worm and like scrunch up like a worm. They're like, yeah, it's like great. I can swing on the chairs and let them go back and forth like I'm an eagle and then jump off and be a rat. Awesome. Let's do it. None of that made it in, but that's all part of the process. And I got to play. And then when we did it on the day, it was like, I mean, it was later in the day. Uh, and it was after we got back from break. I had like, I did first rehearsal before we left for the Christmas break and the New Year. So there's 2 weeks off, 2 week quarantine, then came back. And 2 days after we got back, I shot that song. And I was like, it was so exciting. And then when it comes to the stool, like you mentioned, one, I can't take any credit for it. That's the amazing writers. That's Austin specifically, I believe. I think they were trying to get Simon to uh, make a chair or something. He was like, no chairs. Chairs are, I want chairs. Do stool. And then I think people were like even tepid about it, but it was, when I read it, I found it to be so thoughtful, just so like intent, just so thoughtful. Um, and I I'm gonna take a page from that for myself. Yeah.
That sounds good. I did get a chance to see the finale. It is wonderful. Some big things coming up for Simon. We don't want to give anything away, but what can you tease? What let's, drop a little nugget for people watching the video.
What I'll say is this: as far as Simon is concerned in the finale, I think um, we're going to see some conclusions in a good way. We're gonna see some conclusions, and we're gonna see some big openings. Um, I think when it comes to everything that Simon has been working through and for and toward at work, stuff like that, I'm grateful to say that you know that that journey has not ended. So that's what I'll put there. And as far as romance and relationships and stuff like that, I think that what we're going to see is the natural evolution, just the natural evolution of what's supposed to happen. And I think it's going to be a beautiful, I'm so happy to hear that that was your experience. I think it's a special, special finale. And I know that Austin spent, you know, I know that Austin put a lot of love into the finale. I hope you felt that.
Absolutely. And lastly, I know you said that you don't want to feel like you made it. You don't want people to say that. I hope you allow me to say that I think you've made it. I think you're on the precipice of something big. So where do you go from here? You have any secret projects you're working on? What's next for you? Hopefully more Zoey, of course. Fingers crossed for that. But
Yes.
outside of the Zoey
Yo,
world.
absolutely. Fingers crossed for more Zoe. Shadon, my goals are I'm working on a few films, writing them. There's one that I'm co-producing and writing, and there's another one that I'm writing. There's two pilots that are in process right now. One that is going to be a vehicle for me, the other not having to do with me at all. And also, I have on proposal a hybrid memoir a proposal that I've written that is out on sub to different publishers, and we're going to wait to see what comes back with that. So like, there's things cooking here and there, but something that I'm really, really, that I really, really want is to do a one man show. I really want to do a one man show um, that incorporates music, that incorporates dance, um, that gives me the opportunity to kind of play on my own terms with everything that I've learned about myself through the process of Zoe's. Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being so open and vulnerable and honest with me. I hope that we get to touch base in the future. Thank you so much for this performance. What a blast to get to talk to you. I loved it so much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.